Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alyson Grange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. US Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump to hold their final rallies only in swing states ahead of Election Day. The two presidential candidates will cross paths in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania tomorrow. Khalistani extremists assault Hindu devotees in a temple in Canada's Brampton. New Delhi calls the attack deeply disturbing and demands a full investigation into the violence. Russia and Indonesia begin their first ever joint maritime drills in the Java Sea. This as Indonesia's newly elected president Prabowo Subianto pledges closer ties with Vladimir Putin. British Foreign Secretary David Lammy visits Nigeria in a bid to deepen UK-Africa relations. Addressing the hot issue of colonization, Lammy says reparations should be about the future and not the transfer of cash. A lightning strike kills at least 14, including children, in a refugee camp in northern Uganda. Officials say the victims were attending prayer in a makeshift metallic structure when the lightning struck. Hello and welcome. We begin the week with our top focus on Nigeria. Around 30 children could face the death sentence for protesting against the government over the rising cost of living in the country. On Friday, Nigeria charged 76 people on 10 felony counts for participating in the August protest against the government. Now, these charges include destruction of property, public disturbance, and also treason and inciting a military coup, for which, if found guilty, they could face the death penalty. Now, over a third of those charged are aged between 14 and 17. As per reports, 4 of these minors collapsed in the courtroom from exhaustion before they could enter a plea. Several videos shared on social media show many youth sitting or lying on the courtroom floor, holding their stomachs while half awake. The videos triggered public anger, with many pointing toward the lack of nourishment visible in the children. Politicians and civil society groups have condemned the detentions of the youth for participating in protests. Amnesty International has called the detentions horrifying and has urged President Bola Tinubu to unconditionally release the minors, while the opposition politicians have alleged that the children were starved and badly treated during the detention. However, the Nigerian police have denied subjecting the children to any ill treatment and have said that they were provided with medical treatment while in custody. The police also warned that age does not exempt individuals from facing legal consequences in Nigeria, and someone who is more than 7 years old can be indicted. However, some lawyers have pointed that Nigeria's Child Rights Act does not allow any minor to be subject to criminal proceedings and sentenced to death. The death sentence was introduced in the 1970s in Nigeria, but there have been no executions in the country since 2016. For now, these children have been granted bail and their trial has been postponed until January next year. However, Nigeria's Justice Minister has asked for this date to be brought forward. The minors are reportedly being held by police since August, when several Nigerians hit the streets to attend rallies against the Tinubu administration. At least 21 people were killed by the Nigerian security forces in those protests, and more than 700 were arrested. Nigeria, which is Africa's most populous nation and one of the top oil producers, remains in a constant state of crisis with high inflation and months of power disruption. The inflation rate is at a 28-year high and the local naira currency at record lows against the dollar. As per a new United Nations report, the country is classified as a hotspot of very high concern, as a large number of people are facing acute food shortages. While many ordinary Nigerians are struggling to make ends meet, the country's politicians and lawmakers, who are some of the best paid in Africa, are often accused of corruption. While President Bola Tinubu assured the public that steps are being taken to listen to their demands, many Nigerians remain dissatisfied with the governance. That could risking minors to death penalty worsen public trust in the government, or could it ignite even more protests? Now, for more on this, we have with us Inibehe Efiong, who is a human rights lawyer, joining us live from Abuja. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, around 30 minors in Nigeria are facing potential death sentences after being charged with these serious offences for participating in the protest against the country's cost of living crisis. What legal provisions in Nigeria's Child Rights Act prohibit the prosecution and sentencing of minors to death, and how are these being addressed in the current cases?
Thank you. What has happened is that these minors were arrested along with adults across some states in the country, particularly the northern part of Nigeria, including Kano State and Kaduna State and some other places in the country. They have been in detention for the past 3 months. They were in police custody before the Nigerian government took them to the court and charged them for treason and other sundry offenses. Now, by law, it is possible to hold a minor criminally responsible for an offense that the minor is alleged to have committed. But what we are saying in this case is that there is a special procedure under the law for that to be done. And under Section 15 of the Child Rights Act of Nigeria that was passed in 2003, the law prohibits subjecting a minor or a child to trial in the conventional court. A child can only be tried under the law in Nigeria either at the family court or a juvenile court. But in this case, these minors were taken before a federal high court and ran with some adults for offenses that the government is yet to prove. They were also detained along with these adults at the police detention facility called SAS in Abuja, which was the special anti-robbery squad that led to the NSAS protests in Nigeria in 2020. It is that same facility that was notorious for the killing and slaughter of Nigerians that these minors were detained. They are malnourished, they were not properly fed, not properly catered for. So what the government has done is wrong. It offends several provisions of the Nigerian law.
Right. And Inibehe, as you've mentioned there's concerns of malnourishment and they have not been treated well in detention. Considering Nigeria's international obligations under treaties like the Convention on the Rights of the Child, what implications could these death penalty cases for minors have on the country's global standing and diplomatic relations?
It is an embarrassment to the country, and we are very explicit in making that case, that you cannot parade children who have not been given education, who have been denied education, because even under our law in Nigeria, even before you even go to the International Convention, under the Universal Basic Education Act of Nigeria, Section 2 of that law demands that every child must be given compulsory universal education, particularly at the primary level. So for the government that has denied these children their right to education, has also recognized under Section 18 of the Nigerian Constitution, under the African Charter, and under even the UNICEF, instruments and other international instruments. It makes a mockery of our country. It portrays Nigeria as a country that is not ready for democracy, as a country that has no regard for human rights. But we are not surprised, because we are dealing with a regime, we are dealing with a system that has continually violated the rights of Nigerians, that has continually subjugated the Nigerian people. So it is not surprising that children are being treated in this manner. As I said, these are children that have been neglected, that have been abandoned, both by the regional government, the subnational government, and the national government in Nigeria. So this stands condemned, and the international community must condemn what has happened.
Yeah.
Because if you are asking investors to come and invest in Nigeria, at the time that our economy has almost completely collapsed, at the time that our inflation has gone very high, at the time that the people can barely survive, and you are bringing these children to charge them for treason, an offense that carries the death penalty. So it is a mockery of the legal system to even insinuate that 13-year-old were trying to overthrow the president simply because they came out to protest. So I find it very scandalous. I find it very unpatriotic. It is an irresponsible action by the government, by the police. And that is why we are demanding that these frivolous charges that they have filed should be discontinued immediately.
Right. Inibehe, thank you very much for being with us on Firstpost Africa and for your valued insights and analysis on the latest coming out of Nigeria.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure speaking with you.
Moving on to Senegal now in West Africa, which has become the latest nation to be a part of Turkey's Africa outreach. After similar deals with Somalia and Niger, the Eurasian nation has signed a new oil cooperation deal with Senegal. Turkey will be helping Senegal with oil and natural gas exploration, as well as production and trade. The deal was signed after a meeting between new Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye and his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan met in Ankara last week. Now, as per the deal, Turkey will contribute to seismic exploration activities in the onshore and offshore Senegal, as well as the fields of renewable energy, critical and rare earth minerals. Senegal is one of the world's newest oil producers. Production at the West African nation's first offshore oil project has started only in June of this year. The project, called the Sangomar Deepwater Project, aims to produce 100,000 barrels of oil per day. It is operated by an Australian firm. Senegal is also awaiting the beginning of its inaugural gas project, the Greater Tortue Ahmeyim gas field, and it is expected to produce 2.3 million metric tons of natural gas per year in its first phase. Now, it's like Senegal, Turkey has signed oil cooperation and exploration deals with other African nations as well. Just last month, Turkish exploration vessel, the Arak Reis, had arrived in the Somali capital of Mogadishu to start searching for oil and natural gas. The deal with Somalia allows Turkey to drill in 3 areas, each measuring roughly 5,000 square kilometers. Ankara has also signed defense and security deals with Mogadishu and is also involved in Somalia's agriculture and construction sectors. Turkey has also signed an oil cooperation deal with the junta-led Niger, its new partner in the Sahel region. Now, Niger has been seeking alternative engagements after cutting ties with Western nations, particularly France and the US. Filling that gap has been Russia, which now has access to Niger's military bases in exchange for weapons and training. And now, joining Russia is Turkey, which is also reportedly seeking access to Niger's uranium ores for its nuclear power plants. Turkey is looking to expand its foothold across Africa. Ankara is competing with major powers like Russia, the US, China, and France in the continent. In recent years, it has gained significant edge in establishing itself as the next big player. Ankara has signed military cooperation agreements with more than 25 African countries, supplying them with Turkish-made weapons, including attack drones, helicopters, training aircraft, and armored vehicles. Turkey is also reportedly the fourth largest arms supplier to sub-Saharan Africa. Ankara also expressed its will to forge deeper ties in the continent during a Turkey-Africa summit hosted in Djibouti, which was attended by 14 African nations over the weekend. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, who presided over the summit, said that trade with the continent surpassed $35 billion last year, and Turkey's direct investments now totaled $7 billion.
In African countries, Turkey fully supports the fight against terrorism and continues to support local and regional initiatives aimed at strengthening stability, building capacity and confidence through the continent. Turkey continues to invest heavily in the continent with its political, security, economic, social and humanitarian capabilities.
So far, Ankara's influence had been limited to the Horn of Africa and North Africa due to geographical and religious link. However, with more deals in the pipeline, Turkey is trying to meet its goals through Africa in an attempt to emerge as the next big player. Let us now shift our focus toward North Africa, where Morocco is boosting its military capabilities by inking new cooperation agreements. Morocco's Minister Delegate for the National Defense Administration has signed cooperation agreements with the defense ministers of the Czech Republic and Azerbaijan in the military and technical fields. The agreements cover areas such as military training and exercises, defense industry, technical support and exchange of experience, as well as military, health and cyber security. During the meetings, which took place as a part of the Marrakesh Air Show, officials from the Czech Republic and Azerbaijan stressed on the high priority of their partnerships with Morocco. The two countries also expressed their admiration for the economic and social development achieved by the North African country. They each expressed their willingness to increase meetings and dialogues between their respective countries. Taking to social media platform X, the Czech Republic's defense minister, Jana Černochová, also said that the two countries discussed opportunities for arms industry, as well as the security situation in the region and the world. Now, the signing of the cooperation agreements comes just days after Morocco raised its defense budget to 133 billion dirhams, or $13 billion, for 2025. The country's defense budget for 2024 was set at 124 billion dirhams, or $12.5 billion. The increase came as Morocco aims to upgrade its military equipment with state-of-the-art technologies, as well as promoting defense industries to reduce its reliance on arms imports.
The sector in Morocco is employing more than 24,000 professionals, is exporting more than $2.3 billion a year, and our aim, our objective is to double this figure in the coming years.
It also comes right after French President Emmanuel Macron visited Morocco and signed deals worth over $10 billion in the energy and infrastructure sectors. Moreover, these two developments come at another significant time. Morocco's neighbor, Algeria, has also recently increased its defense budget. Algeria has increased the budget to $25 billion for 2025. Now, Morocco and Algeria have had sour diplomatic relations in recent months due to the Western Sahara conflict and Morocco's rapprochement with Israel. Algeria has been providing military and financial aid to the Polisario Front, which has been fighting for independence of Western Sahara from Morocco. Algeria has in recent times also turned to Russia to counter Morocco's coziness with Western countries. Now, many Western nations, such as the US and France, have backed Morocco's claims in the Western Sahara dispute. This has pushed Algeria to build newer alliances to counter Rabat, as both countries are forming new alliances for their military needs. As a part of its modernization efforts, Morocco aims to equip its armed forces with the latest drones, fighter jets, and air defense systems. The country is the 29th largest arms importer worldwide, with its weapons mainly coming from the United States, France, and Israel, according to a report. Now, reports also suggest that both Morocco and Algeria have been topping the list of the largest arms exporters in Africa. But with Morocco upping its game against Algeria, with the two cooperation agreements with the Czech Republic and Algeria, is North Africa seeing the emergence of an arms race once again? And moving on to our last story, in South Africa's Mpumalanga, the planned transition of a coal-fired power plant into a hub of renewable energy is facing a host of challenges. Numerous people lost their jobs after the closure of the Komati coal power plant in 2022. Many of its former employees are yet to find new avenues of employment. For those without jobs, the hope for a greener future is marred by a financially challenging present. Our next story gets you all the details.
Once a symbol of South Africa's energy strength, the Komati coal-fired power plant has been silent since its closure in 2022. The shutdown was hailed as a step towards a greener future. The coal plant was supposed to be repurposed into a hub for wind and solar energy generation. But 2 years later, the reality is far from what was promised. The construction for wind and solar energy generation is yet to begin. The promised future was to be fueled by renewable energy. That promise looks extinguished within the walls of this shuttered power plant. After the power plant's closure, many lost their jobs, and the job crisis has left the local community struggling for opportunities. The acting general manager of this facility acknowledges the challenges in transitioning from coal to renewables. Pillay notes that while there have been community engagements, not much could be done for job creation.
There's been a process since then to bring the renewables on board. So, yeah, technically we should have done things earlier, so we would consider it not a success. But we've learned from that, and other stations are now applying lessons learned from Komati. With that regard, it is successful.
But a few employment initiatives are managing to take root. Many are trying to find new hope through local projects. But these new projects also offer little financial succor as compared to the economic security offered by the now closed power plant.
I don't see much. It's just those small jobs on those days. They cut grass and get paid. But I don't see much that has been done for the community of Komati since the power station closed. I have not seen anything.
Yet for many, the new projects provide a crucial lifeline.
I think they are doing enough for the communities. Like myself, since I was not working, now I've got this opportunity here in the aquaponics, which is another idea they come up of in terms of job opportunities, of creating jobs opportunities, yes.
When we lost our jobs here at Eskom, it troubles us in a big way as the community of Komati, because there's people also who came out with nothing in the end, and that was very bad. We did not like that, and even now we don't agree with that.
At South Africa's once mighty coal plant, uncertainty lingers about the proposed shift to solar energy. But this patchy energy transition has become an important lesson for future plans for non-renewable to renewable energy transition across the world.
And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching and goodbye.